So first off, we're going to, like I said, recap some big moves. So the Jaguars added Damian Wilson from the Chiefs. Here I had a couple things written down. Um, he had 73 combined tackles, which is good. Three tackles for a loss and zero sacks. I don't
I
know.
like I like Damian Wilson. He's a good player. He's not a great player, but he's a starting caliber linebacker. And for the Jaguars just looking to fill their holes as they try to turn into a contender, it's a good signing. I always liked Damian Wilson from when he was back on the Cowboys, and I liked him while he was with the Chiefs still. So I may have a little bit of Cowboys bias there, but I think
No,
he's a good
that's
player.
no. That's fair. I was just laying out some interesting stats, like to just kind of I don't want to necessarily say play devil's advocate because I mean you did really like tout him super high, so I'm not trying to say devil's advocate, but like just like some interesting stats that I found that he could definitely work on.
Yeah.
I mean the 73 combined tackle, the 73 total tackles like that's good. Like it's good. I just
Mhm.
mean the three tackles for a loss and the zero sacks. It was just interesting. But no, of course, the Jaguars they're trying to build something. They're trying to create something. It's a good signing. Um, but moving on to Colton Miller lands a huge extension. I mean, he's a good left tackle, but I also wrote
The
right here. I also wrote, but that's a lot of money. The money I believe is 3 years, 54 million.
42 of it guaranteed, if I'm not mistaken. It's huge for a player that I don't think is in that elite class of left tackle. I think that
No,
money
no.
puts him in
He's
like the top 8 paid tackles in the league or something like that, and that's way too much money for a guy that's still pretty raw.
no, yeah. Right next to me saying, but that's a lot of money. I also wrote in parentheses, uh, dang it, Texans,
And why is that?
because they freaking drove up the price of left tackles with Laramie Tunsil.
No,
They
that's true.
drove
That's
it
true.
up.
They accelerated the market by about 5 or 6 million faster, and
Like
it's hurting
like
everybody.
yeah,
And
like
for a
hold
cash
like
poor Raiders, this is a rough move. I get why they had to do it, but
which is why I almost blame the Texans more than the Raiders. But like that's why I was saying like he's a good left tackle. I like him. But like that's a lot of money. like
too much money.
um but yeah, I'm kind of boiling all of this down to this is probably the market we're going to see for left tackles from here on out. And it's because of the Texans. So, if any of you fans are ever mad about how much your left tackle gets paid, you could just blame the Texans. But moving on, um, Quentin Dunbar to the Lions.
That's a good move. The Lions are just rebuilding. Quentin Dunbar is an excellent depth signing. I liked him back when he was with Washington and for a short time in Seattle, even though it wasn't all that successful. Um, but he's a excellent depth player, and for the Lions, they're just trying to field a roster at this point, and they're still hurting from the loss of Darius Slay when they traded him to the Eagles a while back. So they're just filling roles at this point.
No, that's totally fair. They are just filling roles at this point. It's a good signing. It's definitely a good pickup for the Lions, and I mean, like you said, they're just trying to fill a roster. They're just trying to get something going. And if he works out in the long term, I mean, great. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the Lions' mo this year is fill out the team, and if any of them work out, fantastic. If not, we're still rebuilding. Give us a couple years. But
Exactly.
if they do this correctly in a couple of years, watch
They could
out,
be some.
NFC North. They could finally actually be contenders instead of being the people that get stomped on. Kind of like a similar team in the AFC North with the Browns.
Oh yeah, doing a similar turnaround of the Browns. That's pretty steep because the
No, no, no.
Browns have
I'm
pulled off
not saying. I'm not
something.
saying it's going to be the Browns, but I'm just saying like, watch out. I mean, hey, AFC North, NFC North,
I
but
mean, be cool. Be cool. And Lions fans deserve it. They've suffered through way more than what's fair. But we'll see if that ever comes to fruition because they've tried to rebuild many times, and they've
oh yeah.
I have no faith in them to actually pull it off for the first time. They're doing the right things. They're getting there, but I do
But
not want to put any stock in it yet.
no, 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 no. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we may be high on everything that they're doing because it all looks good, but at the same time, yeah, you have to be realistic. They've never done a rebuild correctly.
Yeah.
But
So
hopefully, Lions fans, hopefully this time, hopefully this is the time. And honestly, I mean, it's always nice to see fresh, to see fresh faces emerge as like contenders. It's always nice to see because it keeps it fresh. It keeps it, uh, you know, almost like a revolving door. You don't want to see the same person win year after year after year after year after year. I mean, that's mainly the reason why the Patriots are so hated right now, is because
most
they just
definitely.
won so much.
Yeah. You gotta keep the league competitive.
Yeah.
So
Um, but let's move on to some free agency talk. So I don't believe uh yeah, it doesn't look like any of our free agents that we have guessed on so far doesn't look like any of them have signed. But we are going to get into some that we're going to predict. And we're going to start that off with Antonio Brown. Now, he is currently with the Buccaneers, and he could re-sign with the Buccaneers. They are in trade or are in contract talks, like trying to work it out and all of that good stuff.
mhm.
Um, but oh,
But the reports have been that they're pretty far apart. So I think it's still likely he lands with the Bucks. But if he were to go elsewhere, I think that Baltimore would be an excellent spot for him. I think that would be appealing for him not only because he likes Lamar Jackson, but also he can finally play with his cousin in Hollywood Brown. And the Ravens need some wide receivers, so that could be a lot of fun.
but would he take a hometown discount for Baltimore? Because he would almost have to. They don't have the cap.
He's not going to be worth that much,
Well, yeah,
honestly.
but
I
I
mean,
mean, he's already asking for more than what the Bucks want to pay him.
the Bucks have even less than the Ravens. Ravens can move some stuff around. The Buccaneers can't because they just handed out all fresh contracts. They can't
I
they can't
mean,
free up anything else.
I mean that's fair. That's fair. They did literally sign every single starter.
Yeah. I
But
think I think they could get him on a 1 year, $4 or $5 million deal, and that's affordable. And it fills out the wide receiver room. I mean, to be able to get a player potentially of Antonio Brown's caliber, imagine if you get the Antonio Brown from a couple of years ago for that price. How can you not do it?
especially if you get Sammy Watkins from his prime, if he
Yeah.
stays healthy.
All of a sudden, you have one of the premier wide receiver cores with those two guys, not to mention Hollywood Brown's emergence. So
I
it could
mean
work
that
out.
I mean for Ravens fans that actually sounds pretty enticing. And on top of that, he gets to play against his old team, which he might want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he might he might want to play against the Steelers. So yeah, no, that's a very good point. Now, what I was going to go on about is actually I was going to talk about possibly the almost any team in the AFC East actually wanting him. So there's, the Patriots that he could go back to. I think that one's the least likely of the AFC East, but he could go back there. The Jets, go back there, try and help out their young receiver core that they have. They've already done quite a few signings, so again, I don't think that's as likely. Um, he could. The Bills are also. I said the AFC East, but like the Bills are kind of iffy. Mostly, I was looking at the Dolphins, right? So they would really like the veteran help in there to really help that young core of receivers. Um, but I'm actually going to flip it all on and go to a different Florida team and say the Jaguars.
Okay, I could see the Jaguars.
Yeah,
That would
I was just
that
saying
would be
the
kind
AFC
of fun.
East could be a home for him, but I like the Jaguars more than any of the teams in the AFC East simply because they are going to be drafting so many people. They are getting so many new people. Having some veterans is going like I was trying to say for like the other teams, having some veterans, especially in Jacksonville, is going to be really, really, really nice.
The only risk there is that Jacksonville can't afford to throw a potential cancer into that locker room, and that's the fear. You don't
Yeah,
want
I
with
mean
all
he
the
wasn't
young
cancerous
people,
this year.
but he had Tom Brady to discipline him.
Yeah.
So throwing him in there with all these guys, I mean, with all the draft picks they have, they're probably going to have 10, 12, first year, second year starters. You can't have him poisoning their careers or poisoning their personalities. Can't do it. So that would be my fear. If he can prove to the GM or to the coach that he's going to behave himself, then okay.
No, that's fair. I mean, I feel like that should be almost with any team because there's also a lot of teams that do have some young people. I mean, like you said, like Antonio Brown and Hollywood Brown. I mean, I don't think Antonio will rub off too much more on Hollywood, but or Marquise, I should say, because talking, like the family. Um, because I mean, he also already knows Antonio. Like they've already, you know,
They grew up together.
exactly. But I'm just like he could rub off a little bit on him or any person that they draft because they're probably still going to draft a wide receiver because they need depth at that point.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, no, I completely understand your argument though. But I feel like that could be an argument for any of the teams.
No, that's true.
Um, but let's move on to Eric Fisher. So, where you got him?
I think he'll re-sign with the Chiefs. I see absolutely no market for him anywhere else at this point. So I think he's going to come crawling back to the Chiefs at a steep discount, and they need tackles. It would make a lot of sense for them to bring him. The whole reason they cut him was to save salary cap space. I don't think they have an issue with him as a player.
Well, no,
Salary
I don't
cap
think they had
and
an issue
the
with Schwartz either. No, no.
no, it was fully a salary cap move. So if he can come back for cheaper, I mean, I see no market for him right now, and it just makes a lot of sense. And they already brought back Rimmers. They could still bring back Mitchell Schwartz. They might bring back everybody at a cheaper price once they've tested the waters.
Except for the Jacksonville Jaguars need a left tackle.
Two guys to the Jaguars, you're
Yeah, yeah.
thinking?
See, I'm doing it this week.
Okay. No, that's fair.
I feel like that might be a theme of this video that me doing a lot of Joel stuff, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, no, I'm picking two people to the Jags. Yeah, I think Eric Fisher goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have the cap, they have the monies, and they need to protect Trevor Lawrence. And Eric Fisher can protect Trevor Lawrence. So
That's
yeah, no, I actually think it's probably a fairly good chance. And I feel like his market right now has been so quiet because there's been so much other stuff going on, you know? Um I mean, I know there really hasn't been much going on with Jacksonville, so they could have been doing stuff, but like I feel like they're preparing for a lot of things. And free agency is still kind of young to be honest. I mean, all of the really big names have signed, but some of like these veterans, and these other guys who are lesser known, that they're going to take a little bit longer for their market to develop.
And some of them are
And
going to have to wait till after the draft, till
it,
after teams see that their needs can't be filled through the
no,
draft.
exactly, and maybe Jacksonville pounces on it then.
That's entirely possible.
But I do think they'll grab him because even if they get a guy, I mean, we're going to talk about the offensive lineman later, and Jacksonville's obviously not picking a lineman at number one.
No, they've got another certain name there.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. I just said it.
Yeah.
So we'll get to the other linemen later, but I feel like there's a lot of projects, and so I think a veteran is still going to be very nice for the Jacksonville Jaguars to sign. And Eric Fisher is basically like the last guy, except for Schwartz. But I already picked Schwartz to the Ravens. Um, but I mean, they could flip flop. I mean, if they're willing to, if Eric Fisher's willing to play right tackle, but I'm not going to get into that. Moving on to KJ Wright. Um, he had. I wrote down a couple stats because again, there was some nice stats here. This is actually going to be. Um, I said interesting for the last guy, but these are actually really good stats. So 86 combined tackles, 11 tackles for a loss,
Mm-hmm.
and 10 passes defended. So
He's
not only,
incredible.
yeah, so not only is he good at getting people behind the line, but he's also good at stopping pass and
Pass
run
coverage.
defense.
He was once one of the premier linebackers in the league, and he's still an excellent player. I honestly don't understand how he's still on the market. He's been just kind of hiding. I think he's been biding his time, waiting to see. Uh, my pick for him was actually for him to go to the Cowboys until a few minutes ago. Mike Fisher broke the contract talks between the two of them broke down, and it doesn't look like that's going to be happening anymore. So my prediction, I had to change it in the last few minutes. So now, because KJ Wright he doesn't seem to care about returning to Seattle. He's already said, I don't want to take a discount. Doesn't want to do it. It could still happen. Also, could still happen with the Cowboys because he was interested in reuniting with Dan Quinn. But I think he's going to go up to the Jets. Is my pick now. The Jets need some linebacker depth, and C.J. Mosley is supposedly possibly on the trade block because of issues with him. Trade C.J. Mosley for whatever value you can get, and then plug and play K.J. Wright. That's an excellent move.
No, that is a very excellent move, and actually, I'm very sad because I wasn't keeping up with KJ Wright because I also picked him to the Cowboys.
You missed that
I
one, yeah. No,
I actually really thought that he was going to sign with the Cowboys. That is a no bueno, as some people would say. Um, but I do really like the Jets pick. Another place I could see him going is probably. I mean, I want to say the Ravens because they also still need some kind of help on the defense on that end. Because I know they're looking for a safety. I know he's a linebacker, but they could shift some things around. But he would probably cost way too much for them. Um, the Jets are, actually, since we were going to have the same pick, I will go with the Jets as well because that does make a lot of sense. They need some kind of veteran help on that defense, and I'm sure Robert Sala would love to have him.
hmm
I mean, I'm sure there's a connection with Richard Sherman still, and I mean, I'm fairly certain that Richard Sherman is going to the Jets, so
they could reunite in New York. It would make a lot of sense.
that actually would make a lot of sense. It almost makes more sense than the Cowboys now that I think about it, but it seemed like he was going to sign with the Cowboys.
Definitely was
But
pushing that way.
yeah, and I mean they also still need linebacker help. But moving on to James Conner. Now James Conner, he had 6 touchdowns, basically 4.3 yards per average per attempt. But then he also caught 81% of his passes out of the backfield as a running back. I like that. I like that a lot. And from what I could see, the Broncos didn't have that great of a running back last year. That's the one place where they need to beef up something. I'm not saying James Conner is like the end all be all solution, but possibly better than what they currently have.
With Melvin Gordon. No, that would make some sense. I could see him going there. I don't think Melvin Gordon can ever be the number one, and with them letting Philip Lindsay walk, they need to fill that. I think they're probably going to fill it in the draft, but it's entirely possible that James Conner could be an option. My fear with James Conner is he had that stellar rookie season that everybody remembers, and then he's done absolutely nothing since and has been injury riddled, which is not good for such a young running back. My personal landing spot for him is the Eagles.
Okay.
The Eagles love getting washed up running backs. I'm gonna throw a little shade. They love doing it. I mean, J.H.I. and then Howard a few years ago, Jordan Howard. They can't get enough of it, and they always like having multiple running backs. Miles Sanders was kind of a big bust last year. He shows great potential, but he also can't stay on the field. They need more people in that running back room, and I think James Conner can be had at quite a discount, considering he's still available and running backs don't get paid out really much. I think they could probably sign him for fairly close to the veteran minimum. So it would make a lot of sense for them, considering they don't have a whole lot of cap space.
No, yeah, that would make a lot of sense because I mean, also because like you said, they don't have a lot of cap space. They kind of need to sign somebody close to veteran minimum. But which is why I also kind of like him going to the Broncos because it'd be a cheap option. They could still draft a running back, and it would just be some more depth there for now. Like I said, I don't think he's the end all be all solution, but I think he's better than what they got.
Yeah, I'm also not a big fan of Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
So that
Um. So that is going to be all of the free agents we talk that all the free agents that we talk about this week. Whew, words are difficult. But yeah, that is going to be um
everything for this week.
yeah, that's yeah,
We had a
that's
full
everything.
week this week. That was a lot longer than I think either me or Lee intended, but it was a
Yeah, and
lot of fun.
I think it was because of the O lineman. I think it was a
I
lot to
shook
go
you.
through. It was a lot to go through. But
No, that's true.
anyone that stayed and watched it all, thank you very much for watching all of this. If you're just watching the shorter clips that I'm going to make, thank you for watching those as well. Um, Please, we would love to know uh, your thoughts in the comments. You know, like and subscribe, do all that good YouTube algorithm stuff. Um, and look forward to next week when we do talk about edge rushers and linebackers. And we're also going to be talking about the NFC and AFC West. Finally, the last teams that we need to talk about before the draft comes up. But until then, we are signing off. This is Two Nerd Sportscast. I'm Lee.
And I'm Joel, and we'll see you next week.